In us on Front Row Politics. I am Gimba Umar here on Control TV, reaching you live from Nigeria. So many things have been happening in the upstream oil sector in Nigeria, but the questions are still there, asking whether or not Nigeria is the biggest gainer in this. We're being joined by Dr. Diron Fawibe. He is indeed a reputable oil and gas expert. We want to thank you always for the works that you're doing in Nigeria and beyond, Dr. Fawibe, for the things that you do.
Thank you
But
very
we're
much.
also glad to have you here. But you've been watching what is happening lately in the oil sector. We don't know whether it is politics or not, if there is politics of oil and gas in it. But what we know is that on Friday, uh, some major oil companies divesting from Nigeria's oil fields, offloading major stakes in a significant Nigerian offshore oil joint venture. Shell, for instance, has also announced its agreement to sell 30% of its stake in SPDC, that's the Shell Petroleum Development Company, to a consortium composed mostly of local companies for a sum of up to, this will wow you, $2.4 billion. That's what they said. In addition to that, international oil companies like ExxonMobil and Norway's Equino have also sold assets in Nigeria in recent years. That is a no-brainer, to focus on what they call newer profitable operations. My question to you, Doctor, is that do you see an opportunity for Nigeria in this?
Okay, thank you very much, Gimba. Let me put it in perspective. As a matter of fact, the oil companies in Nigeria have been divesting from their oil operations, oil fields, for many years, starting from marginal fields as far back as 2001. And then there was another round of divestment in some other bigger fields other than marginal fields, likely by Shell. Shell did a lot of divestment, in recent years, starting from 2015, and that's what led to the growth of companies like Seplat, Atio, and a few other companies. ND Western, the Arade, which used to be Niger Delta Resources Company. So these are companies that has sprang up through divestment of the recent happenings, you've just mentioned. That is shared divesting from a number of onshore and shallow water assets, which translates into billions of dollars. Just as ExxonMobil also is divesting from shallow and shallow waters, and this is currently being negotiated by Seplat. And if the statement of the minister, Honorable Minister of Petroleum, is anything to go by, this deal will be consummated, in a matter of weeks. And just as that of Shell will also be consummated, maybe in the next 2-3 months. So it's a major divestment, and it's a wind of change, in Nigeria. And that is making the independent companies in Nigeria to grow. And it's a natural process, because when we look at it, really, the major oil companies, are leaving shallow water assets or even onshore, largely because of some of the challenges they are facing in these areas, the problems of communities, and then as you know, I remember some years ago, about 20 years ago, the MD of one of the major oil companies was talking to me that, Doctor, could you imagine that my pipes were being sold to me by some unscrupulous people? But it was no longer pipes that were being sold to the major companies. It was actually the oil that is now being sold by being stolen, to the tune of, as statistically we put it, something in the range of about 300,000 barrels per day, to be modest. And when such
Prof,
amount of oil,
Doctor, my apologies, just to button in there. Nigeria is currently producing about 1.3 million barrels per day output for this crude oil. If we go by your statement that you just made now of this theft, the oil theft that has been happening, and all of that. But Nigeria still stands at a very favorable position. My apologies. To still meet up with the financial obligations to raise money from crude oil. Is that in any way going to be jeopardized with the exit of ExxonMobil and other big oil giants?
No, I wouldn't say that Nigeria is in a good position because there are a number of issues play out now in the international market or the capital market. For example, Nigeria that is producing 1.3 million barrels per day. You can say that it's a big shame that Nigeria is currently producing that level, whereas Nigeria used to produce something in the order of about 2.2, 2.3 million barrels per day many years ago. And Nigeria was able to reap windfall profits when the price of oil spiked to the point that when there was crisis in the Middle East or some other areas and led to increase in the price of oil, and then we were able to reap some of these things. But now producing 1.3 million barrels per day is not where Nigeria should be really. And OPEC has given Nigeria about 1.7, 1.8 million barrels per day as OPEC quota. In the past, we used to worry that OPEC might not be doing anything good to Nigeria, and Nigeria should consider leaving OPEC, likely because our production quota production was being reduced to substantially below our capacity to produce. So now, if the oil companies are leaving Nigeria, likely because their assets in Nigeria have been tampered with, and then they can no longer continue operating as they used to be, in the shallow waters and onshore. Because I remember there was a time Shell was producing in the various terrains combined about 1 million barrels per day. And then there were five major companies producing oil in Nigeria at that time. Shell BP or Shell, after BP's asset was nationalized. And then we had Chevron, it used to be Gulf. We had Mobil oil before Exxon, joined Mobil. We have Petroleum, and of course Nigeria IG Oil Company. These companies combined used to produce something in the order of about 2.2, 2.3 million barrels per day. Now, and they were producing, Shell, for example, was producing across the various terrain, onshore and offshore, and shallow waters. The mobile oil or so on to tap petroleum, companies are now producing less than what they were producing in the past, and likely because the environment is no longer conducive to maximum production. But of course, we cannot lament too much about this because that has led to the growth of some independent Nigerian companies that are doing very well. This divestment as it's going on now will benefit some of these companies, who are, because we have a pool of Nigerian expertise, professionals who actually work in the various oil companies for many years. I
But
won't say
doctor,
that they are
but
restless.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
but doctor, you also agree that the issue of capacity comes to the fore here for Nigerian companies who may be willing to uptake these opportunities that you say are available for them at this time. But I'm wondering really that the capacity, the character, and if Shell, as big as it is, or ExxonMobil, divesting and cannot sustain what they say is perhaps theft of their facility or in their infrastructure. So, what guarantee is there that the Nigerian companies can do better?
Frankly, I'm not worried about the capacity of Nigeria to be able to, or Nigerian companies as it were, to be able to handle some of these fees. Because for one thing, these are some of the people that the oil companies were using, at least from the Nigerian side. And when they were producing large volumes of oil. I can point out to quite a number of some of the people in these various oil companies. Are you talking of First E&P? Are you talking of Seplat? Are you talking of Amni, and so on. These are professionals who had been trained, with the companies, apart from those who trained, overseas. What I would consider to be major problems, first, the issue of finance, because as you know, some of the companies that are going to the EMP, you must have some relative deep pocket, and then especially if this coming out now when the Western countries, particularly the capital market, that I mean the banks in the Western countries are moving away from fossil fuel. That has put a lot of people wanting to raise money in the capital market because Iran finance cannot support big scale oil and gas operation yet. So it means the companies will have to go out of the country, and then some are being listed in the stock exchange in various countries like London or South Africa, and as the case may be. So this is the biggest challenge. I can tell you that if you have your money, you can buy technology, and so which you can use to enhance the capacity, indigenous capacity. And don't forget that the local content development in the past 10, 15 years has helped Nigerian companies, even those who are in the service sector, to develop capacity, and they can support the upstream sector. And one of the side effects of what is happening now is that some of the big contracting companies, I mean contractors like Alibotins, Slumbiji, these words, some of them, are actually less enthusiastic now operating in Nigeria or developing African countries because some of the major oil companies are leaving, and some of them are skeptical and afraid. They have apprehension as to whether Nigerian oil companies will have the fund to be able to support their operations. But I can tell you that, if the money is there, you can go to various places to buy technology. Now, China is going to give a run for the Western companies, a run for their money in terms of technology. For example, I can tell you that some of the software you use for the upstream development, which you can get in the Western countries. Now, if you go to China, you can get it for half of the price. But
Absolutely.
India and some other Asian companies are available to support Nigerian companies. So it's the question of money, and also the issue of corporate governance by Nigerian companies, because this may be a big challenge. So we are African factor, if I won't call it Nigerian factor, will come to play. But good enough
Do you
that
think?
we
Do you
have.
think? Will it? I'm sorry, because I don't know much about it. But do you think it will
Yes.
suffice if the local companies in Nigeria still have, you know, foreign companies as partners? Will that work in this kind of situation? Because the funds are not there. It's not very likely that the government can support any of the willing the Nigerian local content oil producers, if they want to vie into that space, since the funds are not very likely going to be there, can they partner with foreign firms?
Well, of course they can. They can. You see, the independent companies, like I said, some of them go out there to be listed on the stock exchange, and the likes of Seplat, Oando, for example, these are companies. I'm not sure about First A&P, but First A&P is doing very well, and they are managing their assets. They use service companies that have developed technology, to be able to support their operations. They have Seplat, I'm using that as an example, it's part of the four companies that are taking over the asset of SPDC, So, and you have some other companies like that. You have Atio, they've been doing well in some of the fields they took over. Well, we have platform, we have ND Western too. They are doing very well. So these are companies that are actually raising funds to be able to support their operations. The basic problem is that many Nigerian companies that could match, to develop some mass, and then are not willing to do that. Like for example, now the Nigerian government is putting out some offshore feeds, to bid by companies. You can bet it that many companies want to go out there to bid individually, but if some companies can go together as a group, and then in unity we stand. Some of them will be able to raise funds, but that the capital market, out there will look at their operation, their experience, and the capacity they have to be able to do so. And some of them will be willing to support them. I don't have any problem, anxiety about the spate of divestment that is going on, because, as I said, Nigerian companies are benefiting from it, as long as these companies put their act together in terms of good corporate governance, and they are transparent in their operations. If you go to stock exchange, international stock exchange, for example, your corporate governance must be very strong, and then it doesn't allow for all the wuru that some company used to do as a local company. Yeah, so no, I'm serious about it. So good corporate governance, and I know some of the people in some of these companies, they are people of impeccable integrity and character, who, if they bring this to bear, on their operations, they will be able to make a success of it. And then if they are supported by government in terms of the regulatory agency, I mean, particularly the
The
commission,
NUPRC.
the UPRC, if they are supported very well and they are flexible, in terms of the application of the regulations as enshrined in the Petroleum Industry Act, I believe these companies will be able to do well. But we need to watch them very, very carefully. Of course, government from time to time will have to be putting up the framework that will enable this company to operate. Of course, we have the big brother there. That's the NNPC. The NNPC is supposed to be able to do a lot, in the upstream sector. Just like in some other countries like Saudi Arabia, some of the Middle East countries, the national oil companies, or call it national oil companies, they are doing a lot. If you take Aramco, for example, in Saudi Arabia, you take Kuwait, you take United Arab Emirates, their national oil companies are doing very well, and they manage their assets, better than what we used to do here in the past. And these are, now that NNPC has returned to a commercial organization, as a different from the way it used to be before,
You're
then we
encouraging them
expect
to
a
go into
lot.
that space.
Yes, but the issue now is that the transformation that people expect of NNPC by way of haven't now been registered as a commercial entity. They still haven't gotten there, and it's about time they have to upscale to be what they are supposed to be, because in
But by
that
that you mean
regard
to
they
be
will
to
be
be
able
able
to
to play
work
in the
with the
upstream sector.
yes, they will be able to play very well in the upstream sector, because they've got some agencies. They took over the asset um, of this company, ADAX, and before they had what they call MPDC, that partner with some of the major companies to develop some fields. I know they have a lot of gas fields which they want to develop, and they have mechanism whereby they can get this asset developed. So, but they need to move very quickly, especially now that people are looking up to them to develop gas and also work with the independent companies in whatever capacity to be able to put all the oil fields that have been taken over by the companies into production.
No, Prof, the regulatory commission, that's the NUPRC, they want to help, of course, help these oil majors to move out of Nigeria and divest as they like. But there's one catch. They say, we're not just going to let you go like that. You have got obligations. You have to look at the communities where you did your operations with a view to cleaning up those oil spills, without which we would have let you go sometimes in June, but we have to extend it to sometimes in August. We're not sure if it's going to be extended more to sometimes in December. But how important is it that Shell, as well as ExxonMobil, Equinox, and the rest of them, how important is it that they heed to Nigeria's demands, especially by the regulatory body, that you must clean up all those environmental degradation that you've caused?
Well, you see, it's obligatory on the part of the oil company to to meet their obligations because normally, I know it's a very very complex problem. Complex in the sense that it's not just a question of when you are selling an asset, you do decommissioning. You have certain obligation when you are decommissioning an asset, and then or when you are doing some abandonment. There are certain principles. Being international companies, they know the rules of engagement in this area, but because of the environmental degradation over the years, and which the weak regulatory framework has not made them to be accountable properly. But also, we know we are Nigerians. We should be very honest enough that some of the companies their back has been put against the wall in terms of sabotage. Some of the people in the community deliberately went out there, to sabotage some of the operations, for example, in terms of pipeline, because they were looking uh, for uh, for compensation. This in effect has complicated the matter. But be that as it may, we have to use Nigerian wisdom, Nigerian knowledge, and we know what happens. This is part of the reason why some of the companies are leaving because they could no longer handle the issue of the communities. But be that as it may, the oil companies owe these communities some obligation, and then the regulatory agency must be able to sit down, and arbitrate properly between the oil companies. See, yes, the oil companies cannot be made to walk away, as it were. They have obligations. For example, some of the
Yes,
companies have been
yes,
taken to
we
court.
understand that, Prof. I'm sorry, we understand that they do have these obligations. I'm sorry to butt it, but they have time and again said that they have done the needful for the communities. As a matter of fact, some publications have put it that they actually gave some community leaders, some community heads, some gratification, gratuity, whatever it is, but some kind of compensation that should have sufficed to ensure that they are able to, promote well-being in their communities, improve the environment, even create jobs for the youths there. But that seems to be very distant. How do we marry what they have said to what the communities are demanding and what the regulatory authorities are saying that you must do before you leave Nigeria?
No, you see, well, let us analyze the issue. There is what we call corporate social responsibility of the oil companies. Various oil companies and even service companies, they do this. They do corporate social responsibility. They do many things for the community, build hospitals, schools, and support them in their various endeavors. My company, that's just a service company, I know what we do for some of the communities within the framework of corporate social responsibility. But this is different from the issue of damage to the environment. Like like all space, they will know the question of Ogoni, and land that has been degraded, for many years, and so on. This is a totally different thing. But government, I would say, I'm a Nigerian. I used to say this. I've been playing this space for over 50 years, and I know that, and I can say this without fear or favor, that the Nigerian government has not done well when it comes to handling the issue of community and the environmental damage, to because in the first place we didn't have proper regulatory framework that has been legislated. Why should we allow oil companies what they would not do in their home countries? Why should they come here to do it and then not make them to be accountable? So the cumulative effect of this is what we are seeing in the Niger Delta. If we now see if a particular environment is damaged, yes, there are many areas that will have pipelines spills, oil and causing the environment to damage. Like, for example, some of the pipelines, that have been aged, and the pipelines that thought to have been changed, so that if the production has been done properly, we won't be losing oil in the first place, apart from the degradation we are experiencing there. If we have a strong regulatory framework and good enforcement, this problem would not have been as much as we have today. But we look the other way and then allow things to go on for whatever reason. The oil companies giving money to the community leaders and so on. The oil companies, they are just taking the line of least resistance, and that will not help, in this matter. I will tell you that, a lot of money has gone to the various communities or to the state government. Okay, take the case of even starting from the era of Ompadek, before we came to Niger Delta, Commission. All the money is allocated to them. What have they used the money to do to improve the environment? So these are some of the fundamental issues, but be that as it may, the moment of truth has come now that the oil companies are leaving this environment. What I mean is that they are living onshore and shallow waters, and the damage that has been done in those areas has to be accounted for. So it will now require government and the communities, everybody concerned, to be able to sit down and do justice. Even the communities too, they can, when it comes to this environmental problem, they cannot be holier than thou, because if some of their leaders know those who have deliberately sought out to damage, to cause problems in order to get compensation, and they believe they could easily go to international, to court in the overseas, like some of them have done, and then try to make a case. But that's not to say that in many cases they are not justified, So it's what I mean, from my own perspective, is a matter that has to be looked at carefully. But the oil companies should not be made to run away without paying adequate compensation to the community, legitimate compensation to the communities, and government and the leaders and the state governments has to play a key role in this dialogue.
Doctor, we have very little time left, but just before you go, if I may ask you, what will be the impact of this actions that we're seeing against the downstream sector, where petrol is selling for 700 naira per liter, in some places even more? Is this going to get worse?
Well, I wouldn't know, Gemba, because this is an area where I choose not to discuss, because I don't know much about what is
It is
going
too
on.
it is too
Yes,
volatile
I
for
don't
so
know.
many people.
I
It's too
don't know what
volatile
is
indeed.
really going on. So,
But I must
if you,
sincerely thank you. I most sincerely thank you, Dr. Diron Fawibe, for talking to us here on Control TV Front Row Politics. It's been quite a while. We've been raising this brand up, and we know that it will sustain itself and be the toast for our country. We do sincerely appreciate you and your time always. Many thanks indeed for
Thank you
watching.
very much, Gimba. I
Okay.
appreciate your getting across to make contribution.
Thank you so much, sir. And to everyone who's watching, this is Front Row Politics. I'm Gimba Umar, and we're signing out. Bye for now.
Bye.